Furious driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. Bidding Classics, the online classic car marketplace with more cars added every week. And Lancaster Insurance cover the Furious fleet. They are one of the biggest specialist insurers in the UK, covering all areas of vintage to modern classic cars and motorbikes. Follow the links in the description below. So we've done it. We've made it to our destination here, 1,084 miles from home. We're here at the Volvo Museum in Gothenburg. It opens at 11 o'clock. We're about to go and explore. Barry's in the car, waving of course. But yes, this is now the Volvo 740 back, taken to its home. This whole area here is Volvo stuff. There's a bus experience centre, there's training centre. I think there's a factory over there which might be Volvo as well. So let's get inside and see the exhibits. So I have only heard good things about this museum, so I'm quite looking forward to seeing what everything is in it. Apparently it's all chronological, starting with the oldest, which is what, 1928?
It's 96 years?
Could be then. Yeah, and so these are the two people who started the company, obviously not the actual people. So yes, the two gentlemen who started the company decided to do it over a meal in 1924, and then the first car appeared in 1927. Well, that's interesting. The name I-Roll, Volvo, first registered 1915. Who knew?
That was actually wound up in that company.
Oh, okay. So the previous company that no longer exists.
Yeah.
Huh. There you go. So this is the OV4 from 1927. Sweden's first car. And it does look quite a solid thing compared to some of the rivals from other places around the world. Yeah, the wooden spokes do somewhat date it. And this is the PV4. PV4 from 1928. So you've got the wooden spokes, the leather body, that's lovely. And here you can see 4 cylinders and 28 horsepower from 1940 cc's. I love the sort of deco detailing in the exhaust manifold. This is the wooden chassis of the body of the OV4. Obviously a recreation. Yeah, lovely craftsmanship. Look at those armchairs. It does look very, very luxurious in there. So from the OV4 and the PV4, the commercials are already coming out in the 20s. The LV40 and the LV40 bus. (1928). 997 of these were built. 60. 60. That's quite impressive and terrifying. And this is the bus. So in 1928, the price of an OV4 was 4,800 krona. The mechanic had to work 3,077 hours to buy a new car. The same price as 24,000 litres of milk. That's a lot of milk. That's a very spacious bus in there. I love the 1920s Bauhaus-inspired fabric on the seats as well. I'm so curious the driver sit next to the spare wheel in there. The bus, the same chassis, same engine and transmission as the PV4 cars. Well, big solid-looking cars, in fairness. This looks more like a charabanc or a motorhome than a regular bus. So hilariously, this bus, which is obviously the first bus, not the first, but the first series of bus, this example was found by accident in the early 1990s when a house was being demolished, and it turned out this bus was part of the summer house. And so they were able to restore it from that. These early Volvos, it seems, were incredibly light, as an owner could lift with one hand to get underneath it to gain access. So moving up into the 1930s, when car design was progressing very rapidly indeed, we moved through the PV 651, 654, 704, and suddenly leaping forward into the PV 36. These are all big leaps forward each time. And cars you probably don't even hear of unless you're Swedish or a Volvo nut. So this is 1931, 3-litre, 55 horsepower engine with 3-speed floor-mounted gearbox. I love actually in the museum they've created like a street scene from the 1930s, which is really nice as well. This is 1933 PV 654, 3.2 engine, 65 horsepower, 100 kilometers per hour top speed. Looking a little more streamlined than before. This one you see the grille is now a tiny bit more integrated, a little bit more aero. This is 1935 704. Only 530 of these were built with a 3.7 litre 80 horsepower motor. And finally, looking very, very aerodynamic indeed, is this, the PV36. Very different entirely, everything entire front end integrated, the lamps are integrated, the wings, fenders, all wrapped into the body more. Only 500 built, with a straight 6 3.7 litre engine making 80 horsepower. I must say I'm a big fan of this. Oh, air conditioning was available in this car with a small fan attached to the steering column. Very cool. So even the photographers admired these things back then. Yeah, this is lovely. I've got a little Art Deco tweak down there. That's very pretty. Now, slightly less integrated than the PV36 and looking a little more traditional is the PV52, which does have the first hood ornament type thing, bonnet mascot, and a new tweak on the Volvo logo just here as well. And it's got these beautiful little side exit vents on the bonnet. Big car, very big car. And you notice though, it has got trafficators at the back still. But like in a lot of American stuff, we've got the cords and the interesting new Volvo logo as well. 1937. Lovely interior on this, very sort of simple, not that far off from the 740 we drove here in today, 1,074 miles. This car was bought new in June 1939, so on the eve of the Second World War. The guy who owned it from you kept it until the 1980s when it was bought back by Volvo to come into the museum.
Receipt?
Was that a receipt for the car?
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
That's very cool.
And turning away from that, we have got this from the 1930s as well. It's an 8-seater taxi, 1938 TR-802, specifically built as a cab. Only built 1,000 or so of them. It is absolutely vast. It's a monolith of a car. Yeah, if you're heading off on a steamship to the Americas, this is what you'll be going in. Even got the taxi stuff built into the dashboard. Now, coming out of the Second World War, we have this, the 1946 PV60, the last of this line of cars, which was, well, it looks very Art Deco and pretty, was looking pretty dated by this point, but car manufacturers were coming out of the war with not much to go on and have to force a lot of pre-war designs and work into the modern era. Interestingly, it has got a little glass vase on the dashboard, like a Beetle. Curious. Stylistically very similar to the car. This 1939 truck, what's it called, the sharp nose, it does look very pretty, very aero. The nose serves no purpose at all other than to look attractive. And this is kind of the design school they were following in the pre-war years. Now moving to the post-war years, in 1944, the PV444 was first shown, didn't go into production until 1947. It was the first properly post-war design they had, again very American influenced, but by the post-war styling that had emerged during the war years. And it was a car that really put Volvo on the map after the war as a manufacturer. Only planned to make a few thousand of them, but in the end about 200,000 were built. And they are still a favourite Volvo classic. And I've even seen these things done up as racing cars. Big, big airy interior. Very modern, very light. Still touches of deco in the styling there. Cool car, very cool car. Moving slightly backwards to just the year before the war, 1938 PB56. You can see how the styling has just evolved massively in those few short years. Now this, believe it or not, is a 1949 car. It's an evolution of the PV60, which was initially the first post-war car. 61 evolved out of that. But this, though, is an incredibly rare coach built in Stockholm two-door convertible. And isn't it a beautiful thing? The red interior, a lovely dashboard. Oh, it's fabulous. This is possibly the only one, and it is an absolute delight of a car. In 1936, Volvo wrote in part of their manifesto to work on safety. I'm not sure having a trafficators stuck here on the front wing is particularly safe for pedestrians, but I guess people hadn't really figured that out yet at that point. I do like the 1940s gas station they've got going on here. And this is the 6-cylinder 3 up to 3.7 litre motor that they had in so many of these cars throughout the 30s, the PV range. So now we move into the 1950s and 60s and the very recognisable Volvos that we'll see in car shows and things, and cars and coffees all around the country and the world. Started over here with this 1956 Volvo Sport, which is a thing I've never seen before. It has got, and I'm reading this for the first time as I say it, a 1400cc, 70 horsepower, hydraulic brakes, and 155 kilometres per hour. Really cool thing. I love this little detail here of the sailing boat almost on the side. So streamlined. Oh, and on the inside that little boat is picked out in red to match the interior. Only 67 of these were built. Okay, now this is, you will know exactly what this is, but this is actually Robert Moore's private car, his own personal vehicle, after filming The Saint. Did you know he got the key one after the show? Now you do. Now, out in the late 60s into the 70s, we have got both the Amazon, which is a brilliant, like a Rover P6, but very, very Volvo, of course, much more solid feeling. Then we've got this, an 1800 ES, which is the estate version. I actually saw one of these in the Fiat Panda Pen barn video the other day. That was an automatic though. This is a manual, which is better. But look at the colour, the gold, the beige, the brown. Check out the seats on this thing. This is pure 1970s, only available until 1973. All glass tailgate, which is obviously where the C30 got its inspiration from many years later. That is a pretty thing. We like that a lot. This is a 1956 Amazon P120, by the way. 60 horsepower for its 1600cc engine. Now, if you're a fan of a Volvo estate, as I am, this is something that will interest you. This is an Amazon wagon, P220 model. Made 73,000 of these things with a 90 horsepower 2-litre engine, crash protection, big interior, big boot. This is pure Volvo at its absolute finest. And we saw the 444 in the other room. This is the 544, and this is the sport version from 1965. They built 440,000 of these things. You can see where it's grown, just evolved a little bit. Popular family car back in the day, and you can see with the least aerodynamic camper ever built from 1957. Now, sticking with the estate theme, we have now got the Volvo Duet PV455 from 1958. Again, the 44 series, very signature American look. But check out this beautiful interior. Two-tone, massively 50s styling, and just like a small bus, doesn't it? Extra practical, that massive roof rack, very cool. Now moving very far forward, suddenly a leap, the 164 looks like a world apart. Again, following sort of American styling trends, it's got a lot of Buick and Studebaker about it, especially on the front end. This is actually car number 1 off the production line with a 3-litre in it. And this is just taking safety and handling and everything so much further into the future. And you can see the width of the doors just on these door shoulders where it steps out so far. Very modern comfy seats inside there, modern safety interior with things starting to be more integrated into the doors and into the dashboard. Very clever design. Now also a big step forward in 1966 was the 144 series, which is a slightly smaller car than the 164 obviously. But yeah, massive leaps forward in safety and design. But this is a much squarer looking car, almost marina-ish if you look at that front grille. This is the 145, which is the estate version from 1968. This blue one though, this is the first one off the production line. The very first car. It is a good looking thing though. You can spot the 1960s smoothness, fuselage design if you like, and the very 1960s orange of the interior. This is a 1974 Volvo 144 Deluxe. Now Volvo, being super duper safe, like many other manufacturers in the 70s, were exploring safety concepts. So if you go into the Gothenburg Museum near Birmingham, they've got the Austin Rover safety concept cars, and this is much same thing. The massive bumpers, which obviously became a feature in the 80s. Headlamp wipers, this is quite a curious approach to a headlamp wiper. More aerodynamic, integrated flush door handles. The fact it's bright orange so you can't miss it. It is now 14 years since it was 50 years of the seatbelt. Now Volvo do a lot of specialist stuff around the world, as well as the regular passenger cars, including military things. So we've got an army version of the PV544. Is it 444? Yeah, this is 544, which is militarised by being painted green and having kind of vinyl seats in there, a staff car. And of course we've got the Sow, Terrain Sow I think it's called, monster of a truck, all-terrain, everything. Big old beastie. Yeah, I've got the Volvo logo tacked on the front there, which is cool. Front and back separated. This is 1953 to 1958 this was built. Superb tea shelf in the back there, so you can have yourself a nice cup of tea and a cake when you're on manoeuvres. And in case you need to go somewhere get more petrol for it, because I'm guessing it's quite thirsty, a couple of bikes. Incidentally, those steps is where we walked to this morning from the hotel. Top of the concert hall, just top of the big high street type road in Gothenburg. This 144 taxi is quite interesting. It's got a purpose-built cab. We've got the taxi light in the window on the top. We've got the meter in the front. But in the back, like in the Crown Victoria taxis, we have got this divider which separates the front seat driver from the rear seat passengers. And like in the Crown Victorias, absolutely destroys the legroom. Oh, this is very fun. 740 or 760 ambulance. So, I guess sold as a chassis and then coach built into this absolute monster. I know these ambulances on these in the 900 series chassis are really popular with banger racers, partly because the catalytic converters sell for an absolute fortune, and they've got the big engine on a light chassis, so the banger racers love them. This is a 940 saloon police car, specifically built with reinforced seats, because they can be in and out, throwing themselves in and out with all the equipment and stuff.
And in a reinforced suspension.
And yeah, that goes without saying. Well, it didn't really, because it has got reinforced suspension. Extra mirrors as well for the passenger. That's a curious little lamp in the grille, quite like that. Slightly older school. Got the 121 Amazon Police estate. That is very nice. And if the police need to sell cups of tea at the roadside, they do have a small trailer. Now, Volvo have been supplying the Swedish police with cars since 1939, believe it or not. But that particular 940, although it was sold new to the police, was never put in service and it's only got 1,000 miles on the clock. An early traffic camera there, dash cam. 1960s radio styly. So as well as the police and the ambulance, their phone and post use Volvos as well. So these Duets 210s, this one belongs to the postal service, covering big distances between rural areas. And this one is a van version, all kitted out for phone and telegram repairs. Now in the 1970s, there's a slightly different episode in Volvo's history when they acquired a stake in DAF over in the Netherlands. And so a number of cars which aren't very Volvo-ish became Volvos all of a sudden, including this one, the Volvo 66, which was also available as the DAF 66. And curiously, like my granddad had a 144 for many years, complete with LPG back in the 70s, my grandmother also had a DAF 66, like more of a saloon rather than a wagon, which was also a Variamatic, which is a very big DAF thing back in the day. And this is the last ever Volvo 480, again, a Netherlands DAF, a DAFy Volvo. And the 480 was the very, very hot one, the 1.8 litre, 110 horsepower. And believe it or not, the 440 is essentially the same car as the 480, just not quite as exciting looking. But here's a nice little 4-door, 3-box saloon. It looks quite cool with this little 1990s spoiler on the back. It's a cool looking thing. And it evolved, well, Volvo evolved them into the V series, the V40, 2004. Very modern looking Volvo. Still see hundreds of these running around the place. So this kind of echoes the lines of the 850 and things that were contemporaries of this car. This ran from 1996 to 2004. This is the very, very last one built at the Ghent factory. Oh, jumping back in time again to a 343 from 1976, which is very much the full DAF effect, because when the first 300s arrived, they really did look more like DAFs than Volvos. And the headlights, oh, check out these wipers. These are awesome headlight wipers, sideways action. Initially, these were only available with the Variamatic gearbox in them, and there were quality issues that weren't quite fully Volvo as they should be. But they did become a solid favourite, being like a nice middle-class, middle-sized car. Okay, so this is the 200 series, which is for many the quintessential Volvo, the ultimate Volvo, because it just embodies the solidity, the safety, the squareness. This is a 1988 244. These are just, in many ways, I say the ultimate Volvo. They made absolutely millions of them. They ran and ran and ran. 1974 to 1993, they outlived two of their successors. The 700 and 900 series are both intended to replace it, but 1.5 million cars later, they made it to the end. This one, though, is a custom-built car. I believe the Volvo chairman actually managed to have a unique turbocharged 4-cylinder, which was not available to the public at one point. Now this, though, is a really unusual one. You can see side by side. It's actually a Bertoni-designed roof chop from the factory, the 262C 2-door. It looks like a homemade hot rod, but it really is a genuine factory item. 1981. Only made 6,500 of them. Not, I'm going to say, Bertoni's finest work. Now this is a 780 coupe based on the 7 series. Apparently shares no body panels with a regular 700 series. You'd think maybe the wings at least would be the same, or the boot lid, but apparently not.
This was built specifically for the CEO.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, one of 4 custom-built Volvos specifically built for Per G. Gyllenhammar. His 50th birthday in 1985. So yeah, one of each in the colours. Wow, check out that interior. Very, very red button-down plush leather. Oh, look at the stereo as well. All of the small buttons. That's so 1980s.
There's something in here you're going to like that.
Oh, is this the first ever Volvo 740 in the world ever?
Well,
the information sheet about this particular number 1 Volvo 740 from I think it said 1986, this particular car, is the first car from the Uddevalla factory, possibly a pre-production 740 as well. It's a little ambiguous about that on the sheet, but it does look lovely. I would quite like to take away this crash bar and front indicator if we possibly could remove this from the building. It does look so similar to mine apart from being in red. So what else we have? 940 is the evolution of the 700. Still a massively popular car in the UK, where people who just want to go places and move stuff and do it either cheaply or just a bit differently, because they are enormously practical. This one still has all the packing and labels from the factory. Wow, I'm guessing it's like a 0-mile car or something. Battery okay. This is from 1998, and it says nothing about it on the sheet. I'm guessing it's a delivery mileage, or possibly the first one, possibly the last one. Doesn't say, but it's a manual and it's immaculate. Get downstairs in a minute. There is some properly interesting trucking to be done.
Go and sit in a cab.
Go and sit in a cab. Is that a Mack truck? They sell Volvo trucks as the Mack brand apparently in America, which I didn't know. Big earth moving things, that's kind of fun. Or okay, 1998 S90. Apparently sedan is the S and V is for versatile on these S and V names, which I never realised before. Yet the last rear-wheel drive series cars. Now, speaking of versatility, the V70 XC four-wheel drive estate, one of my favourite things. A very, very Volvo thing indeed. They see people fishing in the back of one. That's as versatile as it gets. All-wheel drive, practical everything. And this is where Volvo really started making a lot of money in the early noughties. The XC90, or as I put it in the Jaguar Museum, some SUV thing. I should probably mention that this was the last ever first generation XC90 built here in Gothenburg, and this rolled straight off the production line and was driven here into the museum as a showpiece of this quite a significant car for the company's history. Although I will say, I do like the colour. Now a Volvo may not seem the most obvious choice for a convertible, but they have been very popular. The C70 over 2 generations of a bit less, more squared and less squared off. Very, very safe soft tops with this new floating architecture design in this era. Okay, over there is the strangest advert ever for the 718. We're pretty sure the guy in the car who was smoking, which makes him the bad guy in a modern advert, was kidnapping the woman. Very old advert. Now this is a beautiful, solid thing. The S90, the last of the rear-wheel drive things, incredibly sumptuous. Interior, the wood, the not leather. Well, it is leather, isn't it? A lovely purple paint, which then moved into the S80 front-wheel drive platform, which was suddenly very, very modern indeed compared to the previous one, absolutely loaded with safety equipment, which is, of course, the Volvo way. You won't find these in your accessory catalogue, but there are Volvo Gibson guitars. So it's shaped like the bonnet and grille of a V70R performance car, with the guitar switch shaped like an ignition key. There's even an XC90 one with the actual, it's like a cake actually, the way it's going to evolve.
Also the pearl inlay on the neck
in the name of
is
the car.
actually Volvo, yeah.
Now, of course, the Polestar brand is now the electric brand, but that was the performance brand for a bit. And this dates back to 2000 with the performance car concept, or performance concept car, which is a kind of a spin on the idea of the old BTCC car, which spawned the 850 T5R back in the 90s. A lot of kind of race car ideas on a saloon car, which in 2001 spawned the PCC2. Very similar concept. Look at the massive, almost comical sills down the side. And of course the trademark blue. Then the V50 SEMA, I think the clue is in the name there. Wide arches like an Audi RS on the Hyco version. And becoming what is ultimately Polestar, which is now no longer a petrol car division, but purely the electric car division. Now these weren't just styling exercises. The S60 PCP is rated at 508 horsepower and above 300 kilometers per hour top speed. This one's limited to 250. Now a couple of these were done by a company called Hyco, which is a Swedish tuning company with the Viking helmet as a logo. And you check out the tyres themselves, those are also the Viking helmet in the tread. This one is kind of wrapped in a chrome effect, so the whole car looks like bare metal. Much carbon fibre inside. Well, apparently Volvo have been racing cars since the 1950s, which I didn't realise. I knew they were big in the 1990s, and there's a 200 from the 80s. They've also got aeroplanes. They build the engines for, apparently. 400,000 horsepower or something crazy, apparently. A Vigan engine. You always think of Saab as the Vigan. I didn't realise it was a Volvo motor. There you do. So 144 rally car. 142, sorry, racing.
Volvo Amazon. Rally.
Yeah, 66 Amazon rally car. You can see why rallying is going to be popular with these things, because the kind of country these come from, everyone's called Stig, everyone drives fast in the snow and the forest. Rallycross, oh my goodness.
Just look in the rear of
The
that.
ducting of this. This is for brakes or for a second engine in the back. Who knows?
Just look good.
Big vent there, huge ducting there, and tyres that are very, very tired looking.
It's only 900 kilograms, this car.
Gee, 900 kilos for this thing. That's insane. 1980, 245 horsepower. Yeah, Rallycross is insane. The current Rallycross cars bear almost no resemblance at all to the production cars they're based on, and this is where that all started from. So 1985, 200 or 240 turbo racing. This is like a touring car thing. There you can see the touring cars on the screen in the background. And the one that everyone really knows, this is the BTCC and WTCC 850, which really sort of gave these things the name. The fact that they raced these things and won, and traffic police used them as well, suddenly everyone wanted a Volvo estate to go fast in. And that is that turbo engine. Richard Rydell's S40 from BTCC as well, slightly later in 1998. Have you ever seen a car called Philip before? Well, now you have. This is a 1953 concept designed by a young designer who was only 20 years old called Jans Vilsgaard, who I believe you may recognise his name as being the chief designer for decades, who did all of the big square stuff through the 80s and 90s. And this thing was designed in 1953, incredibly American looking, but designed not to, or too expensive to put into production, with so many little creases and shapes, as Barry just pointed out. The Cars movie style eyes in the windscreen, quirky interior, everything is just very curious. And this is the prototype of the 262164, the actual prototype.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the one. They chopped the roof on it. Bertoni designed. You got the little 3 crowns on there. Curious looking car.
6 centimetres lower. Yeah.
And this is next to the Saab Viggen. You can see actual size of the jet engine. They are really quite big things when you stand next to them. I think a jet fighter, only one person in there at the front. It's all just engine to make him go fast. Ooh, a rotary engine down there as well. That's a prototype of a Volvo concept car. So it looks a 740 at the front.
So, a lot of the technology and stuff in here was used in 760.
Okay, so
2 years later.
where the 700 came from, I guess. But yeah, the truncated back end looks very weird, doesn't it? So they started designing it and got bored about 3/4 of the way down. The interior is quite different to what that. Well, there's a few similarities. That boxy area around the steering wheel. Like the 480 convertible concept, which, that never happened, did it?
No.
That's a shame. That looks quite good, actually. That would have worked well. They should have done that. What on earth is this? The YCC from 2004. 5-cylinder, low emission. Incredibly modern looking. Strange handprints on the seats though. That looks like an Audi A2. This is the DC1 from 2000. And it's electric, an EV. Check out those wild carbon fibre wheels with kind of integrated tyres as well. It does look just like an Audi A1. Oh, super versatile interior, rotating seats and things. And 2001 SCC. Throwing other ideas up, like a perforated A-post, so you don't have a blind spot through there, because people in the early noughties were complaining about the size of A-posts. Well, this is basically a C30, isn't it? Looking at this. The 3cc from 2004, which is an evolution of that. The ACC, which obviously is the XC90 from 2001 concept. XC90 came out in 2002. Curious ideas. Other early noughties concepts I've seen have also got these big clear areas on the dashboard and stuff. There's such an early noughties concept there. All the bare aluminium and the bits of leather and the see-through needles and things. Now this is actually an old friend. I actually got to go to the Volvo test track and photograph this car, this actual very car, in 2007 for a newspaper. I was flown out and got to drive around a track in it when it was actually a current concept car. This was what became the XC60. I actually preferred this a lot to the final production car. But yeah, that's quite cool to see that again. I love the wheels on it. They photograph really well, I have to say. And finally the S60 concept, which is quite cool with a full panoramic roof from front to back. That is really quite cool. But yeah, I'm quite happy to be reunited with this car in a funny sort of way. Volvo also has a long history of this Penta engine range, powering ships and boats. We're going to explore this more in a minute. I've had a cup of tea and a cake. Okay, this one's quite interesting. It's very similar to the one we found upstairs, except this one from 1939 has got a wood gas generator on board. So during the war, when petrol was scarce, they could run the car on its own, well, its own source of power as it goes along. Massively explosive and dangerous, but gets you out of a hole. Wood gas generating powered.
What?
This is quite a curious looking bus from 1949. It's got that pointy nose on it again. The way that it has the narrow bonnet but then the steps out really wide into the body. It's quite a curious looking thing. So it's also an unusual arrangement. 4 seats wide, 5 seats wide across the back. All in one go, not an aisle down the centre, just an aisle down the side. And a co-driver's seat. Interesting take on the thing, with an extra double facing row in the back with side doors. Curious. Oh, Volvo made tractors. I never knew that. 1946 Tractor T43. Made 1,500 of these things with a 4.5 litre straight 4. Barry has decided that since there's no actual sign saying do not climb on the tractors, it's okay to climb on the tractors.
There's also no sign saying do not touch. And there's still no saying do not touch everything else except for tractors.
I'm unconvinced by this. Early articulate lorry. Oh, and a tow truck. Tow truck's always handy.
Done with that a few days ago.
Yeah, exactly. They're really useful. So
Yesterday.
it doesn't say don't climb into the tow truck either. So you're going to jump on board that one. Karen the tow truck, apparently. That's a big fella. There's a lot of that truck.
There is a lot of
1954 L395 Titan. They're not kidding with that name, are they? It does look very 1950s, and you step into this and it's like the modern era of the truck. F88. There's usually one of these turns up at the NEC Classic show on the Volvo stand as well. So 1965, okay, so in the 1960s trucks look like trucks. Cap over. Tip top it's called. Because the top tips. Top tip. Turbo diesel, as it says there. 1963 Viking. Not a cap over design. And check out this thing. 1973, and boy does it look like the 1970s. And you can see in there and I can't. That's a big fella, isn't it? Big tractor cab, yeah. That's 1987. That does not look like a 1987 tractor. That looks way more modern than that. And we've got to 2005. This is more for the American market. The VN780, which has got a 12-litre, 365 horsepower. Doesn't say what format engine, but a big engine.
You've got the sleeper cab.
The sleeper cab behind it, yeah. As opposed to the cab over, which does still have the sleeper cab behind. The modern ones are a bit bigger. This is like a little camper van in the back of here. Table and chairs, fold down or bunk bed up above there. It really is just an entire little camper. Wow. But these aren't so good on like turns and traffic. Whereas for America, they're great because they've got long open roads and you don't do many turns in them. Whereas in Europe, cab overs are far more practical. Go on, let's see. This is a turbo diesel engine from 1987. It's about the size of a Mini. It's just huge. Big Garrett turbo. Actually, that turbo is about the same size as the one that I've been sent to go and stick on the Rover Tomcat.
I like the gearbox on that.
Yeah, that's 14 speed, yeah.
But you've also got the low and high.
Yeah, so potentially 28 gears plus reverse. These things are big, 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 big. Is this like a bus?
Fall off.
Bus chassis
cab?
B10M.
Chassis. Full lorry.
I don't know, look at the position of the... Now this is fun. I don't even care what it's called. Doctor 860 or something, a BM earth mover. I've no idea what I would do with one, but it would be so much fun to have though, wouldn't it? This thing's from 1969. That's straight out of a Bond movie. What a thing. Super heavy duty. And that's it. That is the museum done. And now just these lost bits around the toy kids playing area, which is behind the camera, and the shop, and of course the cafe. This is a 1992 concept car just chucked out here in the play area. The ECC, environmental concept.
You're missing out
The buses, the Lego, yeah, the Lego XC90. I went for when the child. That's,
concept electric car from the 1976.
that looks like it was thrown together in a shed. It really does look homemade.
The electric bus and truck.
Oh yeah, electric bus, that's early noughties I'm guessing.
Luckily it's plugged in.
Lego XC90. How cool is that? They've even got the contouring, that's brilliant.
Some would say it's awesome.
So much. Yeah, everything is awesome.
There you go.
Oh, check that thing. This is a future bus, which looks like something out of, what's the Johnny Cab movie? Johnny Cab. Total Recall.
Oh.
Interesting seat. It's an exoskeleton of a beetle. A driver's seat. This has got to be, I'm guessing, mid-90s. I can't fit past that.
1995.
Oh, get me. These seats have been sat in a lot. And another environmental concept, I think an electric truck. Cool hubcaps, by the way. I like the hubcaps. And again, very 1990s cabin. Oh, the laptop on the dashboard. Phew. Look at that thing. Brilliant. I love how this electric thing is so advanced being an electric car in the 1970s, but it's got like the real basic headlamps and just stuff, mini wheels with Volvo centre caps on. So this was the Volvo Museum here in Gothenburg in Sweden, the home of Volvo themselves. The 700 has done, well, 1,100 miles to get here. It's got to do the same again to get home. But yes, it did fine apart from breaking down a little bit. Anyway, this was the museum. Hope you enjoyed. If you have enjoyed this, then follow the adventures of actually getting the car from England to Gothenburg in the separate video. But yes, otherwise hit like and subscribe and all that usual stuff. And we'll see you again very soon. Take care, goodbye.